All right, folks, welcome back to No Cap Space. We're on the road in a Starbucks in the mountains. Andrew Hobner in one place, Greer and Gonga in LA, and then coming out of South Carolina, the 2023 South Carolina Sportscaster of the Year, sports anchor at WLTX, and favorite of FAM's Twitter, Chandler Mack. Chandler, welcome in, buddy.
Oh, man, thanks so much, Andrew. Thank you all for having me, man. I'm really excited for this. And yeah, just really appreciate y'all having me on and talking SEC tournament hoops.
I'm ready for a heater, man. This is going to be multiple 10-0 runs. I can feel it in my bones right now. Let's roll up the bracket. Let's get cooking here. You're in South Carolina. You got a good base of knowledge with the Gamecocks with Don Staley. Am I crazy in thinking this is all just going to be a South Carolina LSU final, and we might as well Sharpie that in now?
Yeah, you're not crazy. That would be a pretty good bet. Now, I know last year LSU got shocked. I think Tennessee shocked LSU in the semifinals. So, I mean, that's something that could very well happen again. Just like looking at the bracket. Well, I guess I'm looking at it. I guess Tennessee would probably match up with South Carolina on Saturday. But LSU could get, if they have to play, let's say, an Ole Miss on Saturday. Ole Miss, that's the team that you really got to watch out for. But yeah, I mean, the way South Carolina's been playing this year, it's going to be tough for anybody to beat them. LSU was the only team really out of any of those teams on that list that really gave South Carolina a run for their money. Tennessee did. So that's going to be a good game that Saturday. But other than that, those are probably the only two teams that can really match up with that juggernaut that it is South Carolina right now. I mean, you're looking at 29-0, just ran through the regular season. The crazy is, y'all, that outside of really even in South Carolina, we were like, yeah, you're losing the freshies, which were Aaliyah Boston, Zaya Cook, Letitia Me here, Olivia Thompson, and Bree Beal, 5 players who really were the catalysts and the players who really helped the Gamecocks after Asia Wilson left get back on track and become the dominant force that they have been. Those players were leaving this year, and you had a new crop of players coming in, along with some returners from last year, the team that went to the Final Four. So you thought, okay, they'll be good. They'll be top 10, but that's probably going to be it, right? Like just top 10, maybe get to the Sweet 16, and we'll call that a good year, right? No one expected this. 29-0, and like I said, you ran through the SEC, and your average margin of victory for all of your games is well over 20 points. You have 6 victories against teams in the top 10. You're the only undefeated team in men's basketball and women's basketball. It's absolutely crazy to see, but it's a testament to Don Staley, testament to her players as well for buying in and just, shining on the court. But yeah, it's going to be tough, in these one-game situations where, okay, anything can happen in these one-game situations, but it's going to be very tough for any team to beat South Carolina right now.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, we recognize South Carolina's dominance, but like you mentioned, it's turning time. Like stranger things have happened. And so let's go to the left of the bracket, the earlier games in the bracket, right? We got Georgia, Kentucky, Missouri, and Florida, who are all playing today, who also have some players who were represented on the all SEC teams, right? They had some awards. So we're talking about like a Leilani Correa, who was the 6th woman of the year in the conference. We're talking about Missouri's point guard, who I'm misremembering her name right now. Nicholson for Georgia, right? Like some talented players. Talking about today's games, who are you picking coming out of those two matchups? Because there's star power there.
Definitely star power there. I think I'm going to go with Kentucky over Georgia. Well, actually, you know what? Georgia got Nicholson. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to go with Georgia. Yeah. Because, Nicholson.
I love to get on the fly adjustment.
I know, on the fly. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, I thought about what Nicholson did against South Carolina a couple weeks ago. They were actually up on South Carolina 35-28 at halftime, right? And that was here at Colonial Life Arena. And it was mainly because Nicholson was Gamecocks couldn't do nothing, couldn't do anything with her. She had 18 points and 9 rebounds just in the first half. I think she finished with like 26 and like 11, something 26, 11 or 12 in that game. So the fact they did that to South Carolina, I think they could get past Kentucky. And then Missouri, Florida. I'm gonna go with Missouri. I'm going with Missouri in that game. Even though they're the lowest seed, I think that they could, go up against the Florida team, and I think they could beat them.
Okay, so Robin's gonna have those girls hooping. I love to see it.
Yeah.
Listen, man, when you're coaching for your job, you better get everybody.
Yeah.
So, we talk about potential Cinderellas here, and I don't think South Carolina, I don't think LSU counts as that at this current juncture. But Twitter's favorite, one of our favorites, Coach Yo down in Ole Miss, feels like the one team here that could have a little bit of motion, especially with the style of game they play, the way they ended up in deep in the tournament last year, beating Stanford, big 8-1 upset. Is there any lane here, you think, that Ole Miss could potentially end up in a championship game with South Carolina?
I definitely think so. Yeah, I definitely think so because, like you mentioned, I mean, Coach Yo, just adjustments that she's able to make, particularly if she's able to see a team again that she's familiar with. I think that bodes well for her and her squad. So, the way things are shaping up, if they win Friday, they'll play. And LSU wins Friday, they'll play, on Saturday, and I think that's going to be a back and forth game, and it's just going to be a matter of it's going to be a battle more so between Coach Yo and Kim Mulkey, right? Like, okay, who's going to win in that regard? And I think, Coach Yo could come out on top in that. And then again, in that championship game, I expect South Carolina to be there. Yeah, I think in that scenario, I know when the Gamecocks played Ole Miss this year, they were able to pretty much get past them with no problem. But again, you're seeing that team again. It's the second time that you're going to see that team, and that's going to be a different thing. And it's a one-game scenario. It's a championship scenario. You don't know how, players are going to feel, because the one thing about South Carolina is, they're 29-0. They're, and then they've ran through pretty much everybody in the season, but they have a lot of young players, a lot of players who this is their first time getting, either it's their first time getting minutes at all in this situation, or in their starting lineup, it's their first time getting big time minutes where you're going to play over 30 minutes in this game, in this, championship scenario. So how are they going to respond to that? I'm pretty sure they're going to respond well, but again, you never know. And that's where an Ole Miss, a Coach Yo coach team at Ole Miss can do some damage.
Yeah, I'm really looking to see how an Ole Miss handles the environment against a team like LSU again, right? If you recall their regular season matchup, close for a lot of the game, and they kind of just gave it away. And it was a game that they played in Mississippi. And it was, Coach Yo talked a lot about the atmosphere in that game and how her players were like just essentially weren't able to handle the atmosphere, and LSU came in and kind of, took the game. So I'm interested to see if they get another crack at them, do they appear more poised than they did during the regular season?
Now, to that point, I think what I do miss here, and I said this in the column, I got destroyed on Twitter for making this point, but it feels like the SEC in their non-conference kind of let South Carolina down a little bit in terms of, we saw a Tennessee team that did what it's done the last 2 years, where a lot of high-profile matchups, a lot of high-profile losses. Ole Miss dropped a couple. LSU, of course, dropped their first game of the year to Colorado and kind of faded a little out of the public eye until they had a couple more wins back under their belt. And then once you get into conference play, the teams that actually did show up in the non-con, being a Vanderbilt or a Texas A&M, started sustaining losses in conference that took some of the juice out of this. Are there any teams here that you see? Like for me, A&M is one where it's like India Rogers, Aisha Coulibaly, Lauren Ware, like that's a team that on paper is tournament level, but might be playing for their tournament lives here. Is there anybody on this where you think one win and they're in the field if they're kind of like bubble adjacent right now?
Yeah, I think right now, honestly, probably just Vanderbilt. Yeah, like you said, I mean, they were a team that started the season, I think, 17-1, right? Like before, they really got in the meat of the SEC schedule. And then, like you said, they kind of faded down the stretch once they had to see, competition, and they're playing for their lives. And it's going to either go one or two ways. You're not going to stay in the middle. You're either going to fold or you're going to rise above what's going on, right? And we'll see what they'll do in that regard. But I think, yeah, I mean, the fact that you don't just win 17 of your first 18 games and not be a solid team and a team that can make some noise. So if they can get some of that mojo back, some of that energy, I think, yeah, you win 1 to 2 games. And definitely if you're able to like go up against Ole Miss and beat Ole Miss, right, and get to that semifinal, I think that could help them get to the big dance.
Shay Ralph working her March magic. I want to see it.
Shockingly, the UConn enthusiast sneaks a Shay Ralph reference in there, you know. So to this last piece here, because we got a couple more for you. Were you surprised by any of the Player of the Year or conference awards so far this season? Because I know there was this big push to get Ashlyn Watkins that 6th Woman of the Year honor. It ends up going elsewhere. Camila Cardoso gets Defensive Player of the Year. Angel Reese with Player of the Year. Any initial reactions to just kind of what we saw in terms of the SEC awards going into the tournament, and if that's going to fuel anybody?
I think so, man. I think it's going to fuel the Gamecocks, right? Because I think I'll get to Ashlyn in a little bit, but I think Angel, deserved Player of the Year. I love that they gave Camilla Defensive Player of the Year. But when you look at the teams, like the all SEC teams, the Gamecocks, who went, again, undefeated, won the regular season championship in the SEC, only had one SEC first team player, and you have a Tahina Powell in your starting lineup for the Gamecocks, who leads not only the SEC, leads the country in 3-point percentage, right? I don't know how she's not. I mean, I get it. There's other great players, but it's pretty tough that she's not, at least, on the first team. Raven Johnson leads the SEC as one of the top players in the country in assist to turnover ratio. And again, she's not on the first team. And we know how much, Raven gets motivated by things like that, because you go back to last year when Caitlin Clark waved her off at the 3-point line. That stuck with her. That really stuck with her. And it's funny that Caitlin did that in that game, because the Gamecocks only hit 2 3-pointers in that game, and Raven hit both of them. So, I find it very funny. They went 2 for 24. Raven hit both 3-pointers. But but she got in the lab, and she's turned herself into a really good 3-point shooter, a reliable 3-point shooter this year. So I think she's going to be motivated. I think Tahina's going to be motivated because she got second team, but again, you can make that argument because she led the country in 3-point percentage that she should have got first team. I think she's going to be motivated. And then Ashlyn, you lead the conference in blocks, and you don't get the 6th Woman of the Year award. That I don't know if I agree with that, but I think, that's going to definitely fuel her. If you know Ashlyn, she's not really the loudest person in the room. Like she's a silent assassin, but she hears everything, she feels everything, and I think that's going to fuel her as well. And it's crazy because, Ashlyn, she did start some games this year, and in the games that she started, she did nothing but average 12 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 2 steals in those games, right, that she started. And the Gamecocks obviously won all of them. So,
the North remembers, unfortunately. The North remembers. That UConn game where she just was a flat out star. Kills me thinking about it.
For sure. That game, it was tough. And with that, it's funny how things have changed and shifted towards the Gamecocks in that, because once upon a time, it was UConn. UConn dominated the rivalry, and now it's shifted in favor of the Gamecocks recently. But yeah, man, I think that all of that is going to fuel South Carolina, because if you know them, they take the littlest things and they'll use it as motivation, even though, like I said, they're 29-0, they're undefeated, and they understand, okay, the SEC tournament, it's important, but we have bigger fish to fry. They still want to fry this fish and eat that thing well. Right. And that's what they're gonna do, I feel like, or that's what they're gonna, try their best to do.
It's so funny because I feel like Dawn Staley is doing the Kirby Smart at Georgia thing, where it's like you're undefeated and there's still like a little morsel in there of nobody believes in us.
Right.
And you're wondering, how is nobody believing in you? But you find a way. The greats do this. Like, the greats find grievance. And so I think Dawn's going to manage this. Before we let you go, going into the field of 64, what do you think the number of SEC bids is going to be out of this tournament. Like for my money, I see 5 here. Do you see any more than those first 5 seeds?
Yeah, I see 5 too. Yeah, I see 5 too. Yeah, because definitely, obviously the top 4, and I think if one of those, I think if Vanderbilt or maybe even an Auburn, if they can sneak their way into the semifinals or at least put up a good fight in the quarterfinals, I think that they could definitely get there as well. But right now, I see 4 locks and then 5.
5 and a possible. I mean, 4 and a possible. Okay.
Literally, yeah. Take back to the spades, man. Yeah, 5 and possible, which better than 2 and possible. You got 2 and possible in spades. Yeah, it's gonna be tough for you.
Well, I mean, I think I see 3 or 4 10-0 runs in here, man. This is the right way you preview a conference tournament. Chandler, thank you so much. And of course, everybody, you can catch all the work on Substack, nocapspace.substack.com. Feel free to subscribe there, subscribe to the YouTube. And Chandler, pimp your Twitter real quick, man. I want to see, where can we find Chandler Mack on the socials?
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. Appreciate y'all doing that. Y'all can follow me at Chandler D Mack. That's all lowercase on Twitter. And then, it's the same name on Instagram as well. So you can find me there on that. And then on Facebook, it's just Chandler Mack WLTX is my page on Facebook. So be sure to give me a follow, and definitely we'll have some fun.
March is coming, baby. Chandler, thanks again. Appreciate you, buddy.
Andrew, thank you. Greer, thank you as well.